Week 6 left us with nostalgia, thinking about our chances and our one-off shot against everybody else. So let's get to talking about it. I hope I win, but it's going to take his team having some problems like last week, and it's going to take my team really putting some things together, including some guys who haven't.
Yeah. Hey man, the season's over. I've given up. Right?
What? Hello and welcome to the Chuck and Chuck Pod. I'm Chuck. I'm also Chuck, and here's the pod. Thanks for bearing with me as I try to figure stuff out. In fact, I can't even be 100% sure that my microphone is working because normally I get to check that out with Dave beforehand. This is the first time doing the techie stuff behind the scenes. I guess there are some really cool options on here. I'm not sure what they all do, but it seems like you can make this thing pretty professional looking if you really wanted to. I think I've got it set up so that I can see comments. I'm not 100% sure about that. Not sure how I'd find out either if I'm not getting them or if people just aren't commenting. So put something on Discord if you're watching and you're typing something in a comment and it's not coming up because I haven't seen anything yet. So Dave is currently out trying to fight tuberculosis in Ghana, which is an absolutely noble cause, and definitely big credit to Kara for letting him go out and work on that while taking care of the child at home. That's a big sacrifice on her part. So we know that the world would be a better place. I just noticed that my name is still Dave in the corner there. I swore I changed that to Chuck. It did change the comment though to being the Lonely Podster. So I guess I'm Dave today for the millions of people who watch this show regularly, but aren't aware of who I am. There, we got a comment that says, "Hey, Chuck." So feel free to chime in on comments at any time, and we can kind of engage in a little bit of a conversation here as we talk about week 6, how that went, and week 7 coming up here. So week 6 definitely saw some lower scores in general among the league here. Not everybody, of course. We did have one game that was pretty heavy in the points scored department, but the rest were pretty light as far as points go. Let me check. I don't think anybody's scores set records for composite. Oh, they did actually. They did indeed. No, they didn't. They did not. My bad. They did not. We did have the lowest combined scores though set up together this week. So I think we're going to start with that one, which was probably the one that was also the most exciting as far as coming to the last second, almost literally, with things here. So we had the Doge Megazords versus the... Who was it here? I turned my page too early. Oh, versus Feeney's Fiends. And normally we take a minute here to talk about the names that came out of here. 6 of the 8 teams participated. Both of these did. I think the Megazords was a terrific one. AI is amazing, isn't it? We got to see the Doge Dog in Megazord with 2 heads, both correctly placed on its body. And the second one, Feeney's Fiends, was absolutely terrific as well. The faces didn't look exactly right, but they never do with AI. But I think that Feeney's Fiends was one of the really kind of cool, clever names for that as well. Anyway, they ended up with the big scores here. Wait, it wasn't the Doge. I'm wrong here. It wasn't Doge. It was the Backwardia Crunchlings, wasn't it? My bad. I don't even know what one I'm looking at here. Let's start over again. We're talking about the Megazords versus the Blue Golds. That's where we are. Blue Golds didn't participate. That threw me off. The Megazords had a cool name. We'll stick with that. This was pretty close. It felt like it came down to Deebo Samuel, if I remember correctly, at the end. If he would have just had one more catch, it would have put it over the edge. Unfortunately, that catch never came, and he ended with 4.65, leaving the Megazords on the losing end by just 0.35, which is the second smallest margin of victory in the Yahoo era. And I would be pretty 100% certain it's the second smallest in all of our history, because only in the Yahoo era did we switch to fractional points. And it's not really was an option. The only option for closer before we had fractional points was a tie. And I don't think a true tie ever happened other than the 0-0 debacle. I don't have access to the ESPN and NFL records, but I don't think a tie ever happened to be the closest one. So I think this was quite the thing here. But even though it looked like it was Deebo Samuel at the end, I think the real culprit for the Megazords was the Cam Little missing 2 extra point attempts and then not having any other attempts. Was it one? It was only one missed extra point attempt. I thought it was 2. Oh, he missed a field goal and a PAT. Sorry. So he missed his 2 attempts and was never able to complete anything, which is pretty close to the record for the lowest points with a kicker. The lowest one is actually -4, which must have included even more just straight up missed attempts, which is crazy. I should revisit that game and see what happened during that time. I believe it was Dave that scored that one. Otherwise, these two teams didn't really team up for anything. Drake May was a good quarterback choice, put up 29 points. And we'll see later that Alex is going to continue streaming quarterbacks against New Orleans. And on the other side for the Blue Golds, Josh Jacobs put up 29 points. So both of those two tied, and then everybody else was just kind of evenly junked all the way down with things there. Nobody else was particularly doing much on either team. The benches were somewhat pointed here. Zach Ertz did pretty well. Otherwise, the only other 2 on the Megazords bench doing anything was quarterback, so that wouldn't have helped. Jamar Chase being on the bench, and Rashad White, and Sam Laporta, and DeAndre Swift. Wow, 84 points on the bench for the Blue Golds. They just about had the same score with their bench alone. Holy smokes, that is unfortunate. Now, they still got the win. They got their first win of the year. At the end of the day, that's what really matters, but they could have put some more points on the table there and kept it from being in doubt. Now, of course, this was a good thing, I guess, for Sam. I'm sure he's cheering this on because he was able to keep both records that would have at least become tied had this game gone the other way. The Doge Destroyers have to settle for a 5-0 start, which is the second best ever. One more win would have tied them with the 2018 Ferrets, who put up a 6-0 start to that season. And the Blue Golds end up getting a win, snapping a 10-game losing streak dating back to last year, week 11, which is the second longest losing streak. Sam holds the longest one when he lost 11 straight a few years ago, and that was all in one season, which, gosh, that's tough to do. It just goes to show how hard it is to have sustained winning streaks in the fantasy league, no matter how hard you're trying. And honestly, how hard it is to have sustained losing streaks, even if you're really not trying, because you can put up a bad score and eventually you're going to get paired up against someone who has a worse score than you, and you're going to end up winning. Now, you could put in the kind of hustle that Kara and Dave did when they were tanking, I guess, and try to do that. But to do that over 11 weeks straight, I'm not sure that that's any fun. Let's see if I had any tidbits here about the Megazords and the Blue Golds to follow up on. I don't think I did. I had not originally noticed just how how many points the Blue Golds had on their bench. So he's lucky that he pulled out that win, because that would be some serious sadness to have failed to get that there. So let's see. Let's go on to none of these other ones were at all particularly in doubt. So we'll just work our way up. We're going to have Arthur's Toenail Crunch, which didn't even really have to have any AI work done to it. It just got the nice picture out of the book there. Gotta love an Arthur reference. Against the Fighting Fergals, who also chose to not participate this week, but they did pull off the win. So for this one here, we have a let me make sure I'm looking at the right one again. I don't know why my notes are all over the place here still. All right, 96 to 121. Jordan's season woes continue. Is it time to start trading and giving up some of next year's draft capital so that he can get to the championship, because that's about what he had to do. I don't know that he was this bad 2 years ago, but he wasn't looking great, but he was going to make the playoffs. And right now he's still in position to make the playoffs, and that's all you have to do. If you can get the right trades in place, you can make a run for it. So I don't know if we should all expect to be seeing some messages in our boxes soon from the Watt Latinen telling us, giving us first round pick next year for something. On the other hand, it seems like Jordy's been not quite as invested in the league this year. He's been a little more hands off in a number of ways so far. So I'm not certain that he's in the mood to put up those kind of trades this year. Trades in general, we have not had a single trade yet this year. Is one going to happen? I don't know. It's going to have to take somebody who feels like they can get the right piece for the right price there. The big numbers, the big names for the toenail crunches just continue to disappoint. Najigba is about the brightest spot he's got, but Henry putting up 13 points is honestly like his best in many weeks. Since week 1. Wow. Barkley did not have a lot as the Eagles got kind of stuffed. Keenan Allen didn't really work out. James Cook only got to put up 8 points in their loss. It was just a lot of unfortunate stuff going on. Jordan Love didn't put up a ton of points against Cincinnati. Meanwhile, on the other side, Patrick Mahomes just continues to be going ham. 30 points over there. Genty put up pretty good points again. Cameron Dicker put up 21. Her defense put up 16. It kind of overbalances the fact that most everybody else on the team did not do very well. So the Fergals put up a 121. Let's see their benches here. Nothing too particular going on there. The Fergals have been surprisingly solid this year. I know we've talked a lot about how the Tinkerers got that bad score in the draft grade of an F and have been, so far outperforming their projections there. But of course, they're barely using anyone from the draft. In fact, this week they set the record for the year of the least amount of points from drafted players. Now, we didn't score many points to begin with, but like probably half or less of his team is actually the original draft. So that F doesn't really carry through. Meanwhile, the Fergals got a D+, and they've changed basically nobody. They did hit the waivers this last week. They're up to 2 moves already. We're not even halfway through this year. So they could be looking at a record waiver year. I don't think so. She'd have to hit 10, which seems extremely high for the Fergals. So we'll see where that ends up going. But the Fergals are putting up a very nice year so far. In general, their scores have been around 120. The last 2 weeks, 120, 121. They have a 124 in there and a 119. So 4 of the 6 have been basically at 120, which, gosh, that's like the goal, I think, is you want to hit 120 every week. If you can hit 120, you are very much in the game. You can have bad luck and lose, but if you score 120 every week, you're going to win more than you lose when it comes to that. So the Fergals just continue to put up numbers. I don't know if it's sustainable. I don't know if their team is going to kind of fall at some point here, or if they're going to be able to keep it up. We will just have to keep seeing. Last year's kind of the opposite. She wasn't scoring very well, got lucky enough to get some wins, and then got hot at the end. So you really can't doubt the Fergals. They're in a 3-way tie for second place now. Meanwhile, the toenail crunches fall down into 6th in the last spot currently in the playoffs, which all of a sudden now is looking like it might actually have a bit of a battle over 6th place. Before we get to the highest scoring game of the week, which I believe was the game of the week too, so Yahoo's been nailing that pretty well, we're going to deal with the Game Freaks versus the Falcon Punchers. And I tell you what, I was beside myself seeing this happen. The last 2 weeks, my bench has had 3 players put up 30 points on the bench. It just tugs at your heartstrings to see that. Probably none of you, but for me, it does tug at my heartstrings a little bit. So all of a sudden, though, the Monday night game really worked out for me after leaving those big names on the bench, and then everybody else just kind of sucked. The Jets were terrible. Like Buka got hurt, did nothing. McLaughlin was okay with 8.5, and then the defense was okay with 6, but nothing's going to help you. And then, gosh, Robinson puts up a 37.5. Drake London puts up a 24. Jaden Daniels is a 20, and Josh Allen has a subpar game for him. It's just enough to really tip the scales. I thought I was going to be in contention. Heartstrings tugged. I appreciate that. I thought I was going to be in contention, honestly, for one of the top 10 lowest scores. With everybody active. And then I ended up getting just about 120. So thank you to the Washington and Falcons for putting up some points there at the end, because it is heartening, I guess, to know that I have points on my team. I just got to put them in the right positions. Meanwhile, the Falcons put in their 5th game under 100. That 150 feels like a long time ago right now for them, and is really keeping them afloat as far as any sort of points scored, which still, even with the 150, they are less than 100 points on average right now per week. It's a bad year for the Muskoxen in general, because this was their 3rd game in the 80s even. It might be a long season for them on this one here. So let's see if I had any other things to say. I don't think I did on this one. So that takes us to the big game of the week, where we had the Feeny Fiends, which, as I said, I really enjoyed as a name, and the Backwardia Crunchlings, which I also very much enjoyed as a name. I would say this was probably my favorite name matchup. It also was the 2 highest scoring teams of the week, but Josh was able to flip those expectations, and he was the winner. Dave would have beaten anybody else that he had gotten to play, and he ends up being the loser by just about 11 points here. So let's break it down a little bit. It was a tough loss for the Fiends, another big week for the Crunchlings, and they did it without Nakua. Only was able to put up 3, but gosh, George Pickens, I know we dunked on that one a little bit with the draft. Certainly got to give him some credit for that. The George Pickens thing has turned out very well. For that, McCaffrey, he's not like carrying teams alone, but he is putting up big numbers every single week. You just know. Achane putting up 34, huge there. The defense got 12, the kicker gets 11, the quarterback gets 20. Like, everything is just firing for Josh right now. And I have some stats to throw out as soon as I'm done with this. We're going to have a little bit of a heart gush for Josh later, because Dave's not here to put the kibosh on that. So he's probably going to be muting this, although who am I kidding? I doubt Dave's watching right now. He is very busy on the other side of the world taking care of tuberculosis. On the other side for Dave, a couple of big shows. He had Jonathan Taylor continues to blow through. Goddard putting up 20, the highest score anybody's gotten from our league with a tight end, and 19 from the defense really picked him up there. The other stuff, not so much. Devontae Adams, not so great. Jared Goff, not so great. Jahmyr Gibbs put up a bad game, which he has not had many of. His first one, I would say, the bad game this year. Alex might say that it was a terrible, terrible game for that one. But so as it goes here, unfortunately, had Feeney been able to find a way to get 11 more points, they would be 5-2 and have the point advantage, so they would be first seed right now. Instead, they are in a 3-way tie for the second seed. The Crunchlings able to bring it up to even now, 3-3, and sitting in 5th. So let's take a look at our league as it stands right now. Got the Destroyers alone in first, 5-1. They are currently 3rd in points for. Then we have a 3-way tie for second. The Roughnecks are sitting there. We have the Puffins and we have the Fergals, and they score in that order too. The Roughnecks are the second highest scoring team, mostly on the strength of that 180, but they have not been doing poorly. Don't be taking that from this. Puffins are 4th in points for, and the Fergals are 5th in points for. And then just behind them is the gosh, I got to think of the name again. Flemoids. Sorry, I'm still looking at Crunchlings here. The Flemoids, who are the highest scoring team right now, with 807 currently. So really, I think you've got your top 5 teams have really set themselves apart. You gotta take that 3-3 record for the Flemoids worth a grain of salt, because they very easily could be 6-0 and have tied that record. They're up to a very, very good start, and then the others have been winning and all are in the top 5 for points scored as well. Then it's a bit of a drop down, and it doesn't feel like there's a whole lot separating 6th, 7th, and 8th. Jordan and the White Latin do have that extra win right now to be 2-4, but their points for is only 626. And the Blue Golds, who are just 1-5, just finally got their first win, are 616, just 10 points behind. So they're pretty close. The White Latin have not had any sort of high score yet this year. And then we have the Muskoxen sitting in 8th. They're tied technically for 7th, but only 599.91. Got so close to hitting that 600 mark, but couldn't quite do it. It just feels like those 3 are kind of in another area compared to the top 5 teams right now. That doesn't mean somebody from the top isn't going to fall down or someone from the bottom couldn't make a tear to go up. But right now, that's what it feels like. In the ratings standpoint, the Flemoids, by beating Dave, were able to get a big boost of 11 points. If they can do that 2 more weeks, they can finally punch their ticket to silver. We'll see if that happens. The Destroyers, by losing to the Blue Golds, lost 17 points on their opportunity to get to platinum, or I think they were platinum, and they fell out of that one. So that's kind of where the league is sitting at right now. So I want to talk a little bit. No, that's fine. That's okay if you didn't change the name. I can figure it out. I know our teams. Have the tight ends been scoring well against you? I did not notice that trend, Josh. I would have to look at that. What everybody's been putting up high scores, huh? You have to post what they've all put up. So a couple interesting stats here. We're going to start with Alex. Alex has had very good scoring for most of his 3 years here. And obviously this last week put up a bad one. Happens to all of us. We've all done it, but it doesn't happen to him very often. So he's played 2 full seasons and now 6 games with us. So that's a total of, I'm going to try to do math live here. That's, I think, 16 games plus 16 games is 32 plus 6 more would be 38. So he's had 38 games. Only 3 times has he scored under 100, which is just bonkers from that standpoint. I was going to say week 2 of 2024 was the first time he did it, when he scored 95 in a loss against the Puffins. Week 3 then in 2024, he scored what is currently his lowest score ever, 80.5, when he lost against the Muskoxen. By the way, this means all of 2023, he never scored less than 100. And then just this year, he put up his 3rd one with 86. This was his 2nd lowest score ever with us at 86.69. And that is some pretty remarkable stuff there. But I wanted to dig into the Josh. What is going on with Josh? I think for me, I think for Dave, I think for a lot of us, when we look at Josh, it's been a team that's absolutely in the middle of the road for almost all the times. It's been like not ever really in the championship conversation, but definitely never in the bottom 2 conversation. I actually think he holds the record for the, if this makes sense, the highest worst year, if I remember correctly. Yes, Josh is the only team to never have finished worse than 6th. He's never finished 7th or 8th. Every other team has. Alex hasn't, but he's only been around for 3 years. But the best he's ever finished is 2nd, which he's done twice. So he's kind of got a very narrow, always 2nd to 6th, somewhere in the middle there. So I kind of looked it up and I'm like, okay, so let's look at some streaks here. So the Josh streaks of getting 120 points in a row. Some teams can string that together. He's never really done that very much. So back in 2019, he had a 3-week stretch from week 8 to 10 where he scored over 120, and he went 2-1 in that period. Then in 2022, he had a 3-week stretch, week 7 through 9, where he scored over 130 in all those weeks, and he went 3-0. And then that's just last year, he had a 5-game stretch from week 2 to 6, where he scored over 120 and went 3-2. And then get this year, from weeks 2 to 6, he scored over 120 and went 3-2. And then I was like, holy crap, is he just having last year happen again? Because I don't think last year we were really talking about Josh being some sort of juggernaut, but maybe we were. I guess I'd have to go back and look at it. But basically, last year is mirroring this year in a lot of ways. Both years, he went from weeks 2 to 6, scoring over 120. Both years, he went 3 and 2 in that stretch of scoring over 120. Last year, in his first 6 weeks, he scored 743 points, whereas this year he scored 807. So that's better. If we take out his terrible week 1 from last year, when he only put up like 64 points in week 1, remember that, everybody? Yeah, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. He put up one of the lowest scores ever in week 1. If we take that out, he was averaging 135.9 in week 6. And right now he's averaging 134.5. So if we ignore week 1 from last year, Josh is basically repeating last year right now. Of course, last year after week 6, he finished 4-4 in the remainder of the season and got the 4 seed. So is that going to happen again? Or is it going to continue and he's going to continue in all the way through and get 11-3? It's kind of the two options there, probably. Just very interesting. So then I looked at points against opponents. How many times has Josh had to deal with a streak of opponents going over 110? 2018, he had a 5-game streak from weeks 8 to 12 where opponents scored over 110, and he went 0-5 in that stretch. In 2020, he had a streak from weeks 3 to 6, and he went 0-4 in that time. He also later in the year, from weeks 13 to 15, had that happen, and he went 1-2. And then just this year, weeks 1 through 6, he's yet to face an opponent who has scored less than 110, which is pretty crazy, especially because he's not particularly on track for points against. In fact, he's not even first in points against here right now. He's in second because the Sam has got the most points against so far. But before this year, I'm saying Josh had what, 12 times where he had a streak of teams scoring more, 110 or more, and in that time he went 1-11. And this year he's had it happen for 6 straight weeks, and he's 3-3. So he's handling the adversity better. He's scoring about as good as he ever has. He is scoring better than he ever has through 6 weeks. This could be a new, awoken, competitive Josh that we're seeing this year. So we'll see what happens as we go forward. I know Josh was looking to try to be the first to 1,000. If he puts up a whopping 199 next week, he could hit that record mark. But I think what he's looking for is to be the highest point scorer. Now, the highest point scorer ever in our league was the 2022 Puffins, who put up 2,144 points or something like that. Now, they had 15 regular season games. So I took out the 15th game. Through 14 games, they were able to get to 2,001 points. So that would be Josh's goal, is the top 2,001 in the regular season. That's going to require him to average 149 points for the rest of the year. So he's been close to that. He's not at that as an average, but he's not that far from it. So if he could put up some big numbers every once in a while, because that's kind of the one weakness. He's been putting up very, very good numbers, but he's lacking that 160, that 170 that's really going to pop that average up even higher. So if you can find a way to do that, Josh, you very well could maybe be the second team to top 2,000 points in 14 games. Challenge accepted. So that's enough love on Josh. We don't want to go too crazy on that. Check in with the pro pick'ems. Everybody that participated got 9 wins this week. So nothing really changed. Dave forgot to participate. So thankfully I was able to move up one there, although I'm only 3 ahead of him and he skipped a whole week. So on that, but that's where things are there. In our own pro league pick'em, only 3 people participated last week. Just me, Dave, and Josh. So get your picks in, people. I went 3-1. I missed the Todd over Alex thing. Dave went 2-2 because he got the Todd thing, but he did miss Kara winning and he missed Josh winning. And then Josh went 3-1. The only one he missed, crazily, he picked Todd. The only one he missed was picking Jordan over Kara. The best things stand for there. We're looking at 16 wins for Chuck, 13 for Josh, 11 for Dave, and 10 for Alex, as far as people that have actually been participating fully. So get your picks in for this week. Remember to get them in by Thursday, although Dave is mightily distracted lately, so you could probably sneak in past 7:30 a little bit if you had to. So let's take a look at next week. We're coming up on week 7. This is the halfway point of the year. Once we get done with week 7, everyone will have faced everyone else once. And then I'm kind of excited for the second half of the season where it's not just a repeat in the order that you did them. People are going to be facing everyone again, but not in the same order. And some people are going to face people sooner than others. There's going to be some where there's only 2 games or something in between 2 matchups, especially with our rival who we play 3 times, because we'll have them twice over the final 7 weeks. So I think that's going to be kind of an exciting twist on things, kind of like the pros. Every once in a while, you get a strange thing where you play the same divisional opponent twice in 3 weeks even. And I think that's kind of fun to do it in that way because it kind of shakes things up a little bit as we get going here. So I'm not sure. Again, I don't have the app. I'm not sure what the game of the week is. If I had to guess, I would guess that the game of the week is probably going to be the Puffins versus the Roughnecks because it's the second and third highest scoring team. It could be the Destroyers versus the Fergals because it's the first, the third and the third and fifth highest scoring teams. But I'm guessing it's going to be the Puffins and the Roughnecks. If somebody knows, go ahead and tell me. So we're going to start with the bottom. We get let me make sure I'm looking at the right thing this time. We get the Muskoxen versus the Blue Golds, 2 1-5 teams facing off. Somebody's going to get win number 2. Someone's going to get loss number 6. We'll see how that turns out. In the meantime, here looking at it, there's no Allen for the Muskoxen. His other quarterback is Kyler Murray, who very well might be out this week as well. So he's going to probably have to dig into the waivers and see if he can make some magic happen in the quarterback position. Meanwhile, over on the Blue Gold side, Chase can't stay on the bench. Jamar Chase is not going to stay there. I can't imagine that Rashad White stays on the bench because it looks like Irving is going to be out again. I don't know about Swift staying on the bench. He's done pretty well the last couple of weeks, and everyone else has done pretty bad. I think, he keeps holding on to Marvin Harrison. He's put up 2 decent scores and not much else. I feel like it's time to sit him for one of those other guys there. Romeo Dobbs is another just wild card. Like, he could put up a lot, but more often than not, he's not going to. Quinshon Judkins, he was kind of a darling. Hasn't really developed the same. Bo Nix is going to have to be his quarterback. Myers, he keeps rocking Jacoby Myers. Bench Myers, man. Put Chase back in. Put somebody else back in when it comes to this stuff here. So when I look at these, though, I see that Sam is currently 10-5 against Todd, which is something. There's only 3 teams, owners, that have at least 10 wins against another individual owner. And Sam over Todd is one of them. The other 2 being me having 10 wins over Todd, now 11 actually. And then the last one would be Josh, actually, who has, I believe, now 12 wins over Jordan. Or did Jordan beat you this year? I don't remember. But he has at least 11 wins over Jordan. So those are the 3 individual owners who have at least 10 wins over another individual team. But when I look here, I mean, the Muskoxen's average, if you take out that week 3, 150, that is probably not happening again. They're averaging 89.8. That's just bad. What is the lowest average score? Let me see here. The least average in a regular season is 91.97. So the Muskoxen aren't quite there because they do have that 150 pulling them up. But if they don't turn things around, they could give 2023 Dave a fight for that position there. So things have just not been great. McConkey's been looking a little better. He does have the Green Bay defense, which is awesome. or could be awesome. Going against Houston, he's got the Seattle backfield that could be good. Thomas Jr., I think, has started doing some good stuff. He had a good game last week. But when I look at him, the Blue Golds are averaging 102. There's a lot of switching around that has to happen with the muskoxen, and they just don't have the power on their bench. I don't really see. Adunze could be a good play against New Orleans for him, but I feel like the Blue Golds have more power on their bench, especially with Joe Flacco now. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Blue Golds for this one. It's good water. It's good water. Usually Dave gives me more water breaks, but the union does mandate that I get them, so you all can deal. Next, we'll just kind of work our way up here. We got the Destroyers versus the Fergals. Here's the thing, man. Bring back the Tinkerers. The Tinkerers was an absolutely epic, totally classic name. Tinkerers was going to be a team name that I remembered years from now. I don't always think about everybody's team names, but I think of some of them as being kind of iconic. I think Blue Shells Love Me is a pretty iconic past name. But the Tinkerers, like, that's just so great. And it was such a great little picture there, too. If we go back to the Destroyers, like, it's like it's the Doge dog on a body. Like, we've seen it. Come on now, man. Might as well be saying 6'7" or something. It's just not there. But I do have a suggestion. If it's not going to be the Tinkerers, Alex, I do have a suggestion. You have 3 players named Williams on your team. You also have two different players playing for Washington on your team. So I think that you need to be the Washington Williams. If you're not going to go to the Tinkerers, embrace the Washington Williams where it comes to that. Alex is 3-1 against Kara all time. I thought it was actually closer than that because of the thorn in his side that Kara has been. But I guess that's been more from a standpoint of just standings and what she's done to other teams than what she's done to him. Caleb Williams returns, setting up a William trifecta here. Perhaps Caleb Williams will try even harder in an attempt to stay on his team past Monday night. He's sticking with Cam Little after just some missed kicks and nothing else. That's bold. If he has another bad game, he's probably getting fired, honestly, from the Jaguars. There's no patience for kickers. So I'm a little surprised. And now that we still got days to go. It's possible that we will see a kicker switch there. After what he had last year with Boswell, I think Boswell is out there if you wanted to get him. But we'll see. It's surprising to see Alex be patient with a player having a terrible game like that. It's not in his style. I could see Deebo Samuel just having a game against Dallas. Caleb Williams, New Orleans seems like the kind of team that could probably make him look great again. Amon-Ra, you got all your big hitters in there and stuff. So when we look over at the Fergals, though, I think they're going to need Higgins and Njoku and Brown and Hunt would all need to really outperform their projections in order to pull off this win here. She's currently the underdog. 106 is probably too low for Alex, but I don't know about the score for the Fergals. I just don't feel comfortable with what they have there. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Williams to take this victory and get to 6-1. I don't want them to. I would love for the Fergals to grab this win and to drop them down with the grasp of the others. But I think that the Destroyers are going to pull this one off and bounce back. They haven't lost twice in a row very often, so that would be something if they did. Next, we have the Flemoids versus the Watt Lightnings, the J-Bros going against each other, the one we just mentioned, actually. So it would still be 11 wins for Josh against Jordan all time. So maybe he can make that 12. So we got the 3-3 Flemoids taking on the 2-4 Lightning. Their records might sound similar, but they are very far apart in directions. There's a bit of a bye blues going on for the Lightning. They have no Henry. They have no Cook. They have no Prater. Cook's been like the guy that's routinely given them points, although last week wasn't great. They still have Najigba. Barkley could at any time put off probably a 25. It's been several weeks since he's had a game. He's not at a game like that this year yet. So maybe that's not going to happen. Keenan Allen could bounce back. He certainly was off to a hot start, but he has mellowed quite a bit. Kelsey, who knows? But he's going to have to dig out a kicker. He's going to have to dig up replacement for the running back there. I would guess he might just roll with Henderson. Like I said, it doesn't seem like Jordan's been really managing his team super close this year. Maybe he's just not feeling it. I don't know, but we'll see if he can do it before Sunday at noon this time, and maybe get to actually pick players that he wants instead of just randomly grabbing whoever's left. Meanwhile, on the other side, Nakua may well not be playing. It seems like he's not going to be playing, but maybe. But you still got Pickens and probably what's going to be another track meet there. You got McCaffrey. You got Achane. Achane might be held a little more in check against the Cleveland defense. Michael Mayer, you're still going to roll with that. I mean, he did well, I guess. We'll see. That's going to be a tough one. Yeah, I mean, things have just been going so well for the Flemoids that you can't look at them right now. You're looking at this stat right here. That I have, the Flemoids have yet to score under 116. The Latinin have yet to score above 116. So unless the bad luck really kicks it back into gear here, I don't see the Latinin suddenly putting up firepower, especially the way that team is currently looking and with the buys they're dealing with. I think they're going to be lucky to hit 115. And I don't think that the Flemoids are going to have their first week stooping down that low. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Flemoids to nab win number 4. And of course, that would depend then on the results of our last game here, because we have the 4-2 East Coast Puffins versus the 4-2 Roughnecks, the second matchup that is tied records here. Somebody's going to walk away with win number 5. Somebody's going to walk away with lose number 3 on this one. So if the Flemoids manage to get that win, they're going to be tying at least one of these two. If the Fergals happen to lose, they would get them as well. So this feels like a game that Goff could go big in. I feel like the Lions tend to kind of just throw up these huge scoring games against teams every once in a while. And I just feel like Tampa Bay seems like it could be a team that they do that against here. Gibbs and Taylor, Gibbs wasn't great last week, but I think Tampa Bay's been pretty nice to running backs so far this year. Taylor is always going to be doing what he wants. I don't think that Goddard is going to have a repeat 20-point performance for Dave this time. Kamara, he's been doing pretty well, I guess, overall. Let's just double check that statement. He's okay. I don't know that he's going to suddenly go off against Chicago, but maybe. And then he's got his defense going against Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't been terrible, so that could be a tough go there for them. I think that a 109 projection is too low for the Roughnecks. Then we get our Rashee Rice debut finally. I've been sitting with him on the bench for 6 agonizing weeks as I've been trying to change things around. And who am I going to drop? Well, I can't move that roster spot because you can't IR him for drag racing down the city streets in the suspension. So hopefully he pops in there. There seems to be a lot of positive vibes. He gets to play the Raiders. He's got a decent projection. The Chiefs have been pretty hot, and he should be able to kind of just pop in there. And if he's anything like he was in the past 2 years, he should pick up and just be a guy that's getting a ton of crap done for the Chiefs, which I'm hoping for. I hope that London has actually turned a corner there with Penix, and now he's got 2 20-point games in a row. He's playing San Francisco, which is a bit of a softer defense. You got Jaden Daniels going against Dallas, who just gives up everything to quarterbacks. Bijan's been on fire. Breece Hall gets to play an easier team in the Carolina Panthers. Plus, Wilson is probably not going to play, so he might be needed for more catches. I think Ferguson is going to be in a track meet against Washington. Rico Dowdle could suffer if Hubbard is back, but I think getting to go against the Jets should help with that. And then I got the England defense against Tennessee, who's been just passing out points to defenses like candy. I think that the Puffins are possibly in for a pretty big scoring week. I think that there's potential for the Roughnecks to score big and for the Puffins to hang with them. This could be a very high-scoring game. I wouldn't be shocked if this one had both teams in the 130s, and I sure hope it ends with another heartbreaking defeat for the Roughnecks, so that I can pull off win number 4. Pass Alex in points 4. Alex loses. I take first seed. Everything is wonderful in the world if that happens. But what's more likely is somebody on my bench is going to put up 30. Although to keep that from happening, I have mostly kept my bench full of injured players. Igbuka and Wilson and Irving still going there. I don't have Scadabo in. Should I learn my lesson? I might. I might swap him and Dawdle. A little nervous about playing him against Denver. So we'll see. That one I'm going to have to do a little bit of soul searching on still. But I don't want to play McBride against Green Bay just because I don't want to have to be rooting for him, and I think Ferguson has the potential to do just fine. So I'm picking the Puffins. Those are my picks. I am picking the Puffins. I am picking the Flemoids. I'm picking the Williams, and I am picking the Blue Golds. We'll see how that pass turns out. Nobody else has put any picks in yet. So that's going to be week number 7. We're going to be halfway done, which means next week we'll have a special edition talking about my projections for the end of the year and how I think things are going to line up. Famously, they are always incredibly wrong with the way things turn out. So thank you guys for joining me on the Chuck and Chuck Pod. I'm Dave, your host. Hopefully this was still somewhat satisfying for people, and we'll see if Dave is able to be back on next week. Let's see if I can figure out the outro. I think I can. Good luck to everybody except Dave out there. Have a great week. I hope I win, but it's going to take his team having some problems.